So the way that I do this is we run the oil, pour it into our, this case, a pan. I'll let it pre-purge overnight. By the end of the day, throw in the oven, let it sugar up a little bit. The way I do it, in the morning I come in and whip it up, turn it into a little bit of a batter. So it just makes it easier to scoop out of your pan, Pyrex, whatever you have, rather than, I would rather do that than try to pour it in more liquidy or loose. So that's what I have in here. We just did a small run for this yesterday.
Hey guys, I also want to explain what's going on real quick. The SOP that we're about to show is the SOP for batter. And there are two main ingredients of batter which you can isolate and reformulate back together in order to make the batter, which is the HTE and the THCA. So THCA needs to be formed prior to this SOP so that you can gain the consistency that you're looking for based upon the formulation of the ingredients. So what he's done is he's let that crash in the oven overnight for about 10 to 12 hours without vacuum, just to create the THCA, which also can be done inside your booth without a vacuum honey.
Yeah, and this was liquidy, loose this morning with just a little sugar layer in the bottom. I just whip it up and, when I come in, easier to scoop out to get into the Spin Tech cups. That's the only reason I do it. You don't have to, batter it up if you don't want. So we'll take that. I already weighed this. It's about 640 grams, so I'm just going to go 320 in each cup. Usually I do 350, 400 grams per cup, somewhere in there. So like I said, about 320 grams a cup. You can go more. I think the lowest SpinTech recommends is 150 grams per cup, somewhere in there. And if you only have 150 grams, you can use the counterweights that come with SpinTech also, or throw some CRC or whatever you have into one of the plastic cups and use that as a counterweight.
What's the max capacity you run on those cups?
Max I've done is 450.
That's on each
But
cup, and that's for the STP 1500, right?
yeah,
And we have
yeah,
a model that's twice that size as well, for those wondering.
and it also depends on, if you're running more solvent-rich stuff. Obviously, you don't want to put more in there. You risk overflowing, having it foam up while it's spinning. And like for anybody wondering, I did run vac ovens for years before this, before running the SpinTech, and it does save hella time. So if anybody's wondering that, it does save a lot of your time and energy use as well. Vac ovens, as I understand, use a lot of power. It just shortens your time mostly. It's the benefit I find.
Just for clarification, too, you can leave this product in the oven for just about 8 to 10 hours, 10 to 12 hours, something like that, just to get some THCA formation. Once you have that THCA formation, you can go straight into the cup. There's no need to whip it by hand at all. At this point, too, the product should have a decent amount of solvents still in the product as it's purely been crystallizing. Um, so in the next step, when he does start the machine, you'll see that the product is both going to be evaporated of solvent and whipped into final consistency in about 10 to 12 minutes. How long is your exact run on your machine? Do you know?
Did the math on it yesterday. It's 16 minutes, just over
16.
16 minutes. Yeah. So 16 minutes versus, however long you would leave it in the back oven, hours, days. We were doing some stuff at a previous place for 72 hours on vac. All right, so I got both of these, 300.5, 300.2. Put the lids on, make sure they're still close to the same weight. 369.1, 369.7, that's close enough. Pop your lids on. you don't have to run the lids, especially, I mean, if there's a lot of butane in there or you're trying to really, really save terps, which you can leave the lids on, but as long as you're not spinning for a super long time at high speed, the cups aren't going to get that hot. So I got the lids on, same weights. Pop the lids. These kind of snap into place here. Close the lid. And I got my SOP for dabs here. You can save, I think, up to 20 different SOPs for whatever you're doing, infusing. I'm going to hit start here. If you're infusing, if you're purging, combining THCA isolate with HTE, you can do all sorts of stuff with it. You can set different RPMs, different back pressures.
Yeah, and I'll kind of go into that functionality now
Yeah, it's going to spin for about 16 minutes here, so.
as well. Okay, let's run down these Q&As. There's only a few of them before I jump into the different SOPs and the functionality and how the machine works. Jeff, so assuming HGFSE THCA density is 1 gram milliliter, whereas the max you can fit in the STM 3000 specs say 2850 per cup. I'd say about almost a liter per cup, right? The STP 1500, we say between 300 and 500 grams, and the 3000 is twice as big, which still leaves you a decent amount of head space in that cup as well. So you're looking about 2 liters max capacity of product in the 3000. We're trying to figure out what is the runtime to the gas non-detect. About 16 minutes. That's a standard run. With HTE specifically, it's going to take a little bit longer. It may take 2 runs. The HTE will tend to hold solvents longer than a normal extract. I've said this to a lot of my clients, and it's a really good thing for you guys to learn. Every terpene has a different boiling point, and when you formulate these together, depending upon your formulations of which terpenes you add in your product, you're going to have different purge times in your ovens or in your centrifuge. So I've had all my clients start to, I've tried to push them in the direction of labeling their vacuum ovens, either color code them or write there directly, which of the, main compounds that they're seeing in their terpene or in their HTE, so that they can specifically try to optimize their purge times and get SOPs for their extracts individually. But about 15 minutes, 16 minutes is standard on a normal run. If a recrystallized diamond was degassed in the STM, how bad will it shit kick the diamond into powder? It'll round out the diamond pretty hard. I don't recommend necessarily doing that on this machine. So how it works, and I was going to get that into this after Q&A, but we can dive into it now. They call it a planetary centrifuge. So you have a cup spinning on its own axis the opposite way of the centrifuge. So the centrifuge may be going this way, but your cup's spinning the opposite way, right? And they call it planetary because it looks like the Earth spinning around the sun with both axes. And that creates shear force, homogenization, and a lot of energy that's being moved inside the cup. So you can imagine if it's going the opposite way and scraping on the walls, it'll round out, right? And so I wouldn't recommend putting diamonds in there. That being said, isolate works great, right? Because it's not formed into a crystal structure. If it is, it's very small, right? It's not a big rock. Right here. Is the unit C1D1 certified? So the unit does not need to be C1D1 certified. It is engineer certified for holding solvents in the unit, right? So very similar to a vacuum oven, the machine will be placed in your post-processing area, right? It won't be placed in your booth. The product goes into the machine, and then the machine should be ducted out of, hopefully like your vacuum ovens, the pump should be ducted into a safe place so that you're not just pouring the butane back into your laboratory. But it is engineered, peer reviewed, and certified both in Canada and the United States for that purpose of running solvents in the machine. It has a built-in 10 CFM scroll pump, or 12 CFM, depending on the size of the machine. That's built into the unit. And unlike other machines on market, it's controlled by a VFD. So on every step of the SOP, you can digitally change your vacuum levels and dive into deeper vacuum levels as you're ramping up your speed so that you don't muffin your product or create a mess. Have you run rosin in this machine to separate terps or cure the rosin? I have not. I have seen it be done on the internet. I have yet to have a client that wants to give me 1,000 grams of the rosin to spin. So that being said, we've seen it be done. We're definitely looking for that content. We've also noticed the machine has like an infinite list of uses. And as new products come out in market, to get that information of what our clients are doing is tough. So, for example, one of the big products in Maine right now, we got it from our client, information from our client, Sam, Rugged Roots. He was asking me, he was like, this guy's selling rosin that is digestible and everyone loves it. He couldn't figure out how on earth he was doing it. And it took me like 10 seconds. I was like, he's mixing tapioca powder in planetary centrifuge with the concentrate. And sure enough, that's exactly how it was being done. So we've seen a lot of rosin be now infused into nano powders, emulsifiers, those kinds of things with our machine. And I'll kind of show a video of an example of that in the near future when we get a little bit further down. Separating terps we haven't done with rosin. The machine does have dual functionality, right? So unlike any other planetary centrifuge in the market, we're able to separate our gears so that it doesn't spin counterclockwise. When it spins counterclockwise to the axis of rotation and runs in planetary mode, you're homogenizing, which is the exact opposite of separation. So when we separate that gear and remove the secondary axis, we're able to run in one complete cycle, creating the outer G-force that you guys are looking for in order to create the separation. And we sell a filter that's anywhere from 25 to 50 micron to help you do that. However, the machine's not built for that functionality. So it works better with live resin that has more structure to it and that comes out the oven so that the terps are loose and can spin off the diamond versus heating up that machine. We don't have density data, no. I'm sure some of our clients do, though. The unit is heated. All right, so let me answer this last question, Jeff, and then I'm going to jump into the functionality portion, and then we can circle back after we explain the machine. The machine does heat up over time. However, when you're running product with no, you're good. When you're running product with solvent in it, the majority of that run is actually done underneath solvent evaporation. So your evaporative cooling is keeping your cup cool. So when you take the machine cup out of the machine, it is warm, but that's because you've gone through that evaporation process, which then the product does start to heat up through energy. But what you're doing is you're creating just enough heat for it to turn the batter and get your homogenization. So it works really well on evaporating your solvent without adding the heat and then adding just enough heat to homogenize. So it's as optimized as you can really get. The only further optimization from that point is running your SOPs, looking at which terps are in your product, having an idea of which product may take longer or less time to purge, editing your SOPs based upon that. And we really suggest buying a used or brand new SRI buck. These machines used are only a few grand on eBay. And you can do live GC testing and figure out all your SOPs in days versus sending them out to laboratories. And when you do that, you're then going to have consistent testing based upon SOPs in a purging machine that, eliminate the variabilities of failed testings in the future, which ultimately going to save you money over the long course by having that, in my opinion. All right, let's jump into some of these SOPs. I'm going to start sharing my screen if possible. One of the first SOPs that we've gotten a lot of attention on the machine, besides purging, besides homogenization, is infusion. Especially now that we've launched the STP 3000, which have much bigger cups, which allow you to infuse anywhere from 1 to 2 pounds per run. I'm going to share my screen. Let me know if you can see my screen, Edwin.
Yeah, we got you. It's blank right now, but we got you.
Yeah, it does look blank on my side as well.
There we go.
So here's the bud, uninfused. We took live resin, just do it straight in the cup. And that's what it looked like after infusion. So before infusion and after infusion really look just the same. And when you take that product and you feel it, it's dry to the touch. It's been homogenized super well. We started doing this immediately on the machine, and it's really taken off. We got 2 orders for STP 3000 just last week for infusion. On a larger scale, it'll work really well for any clients doing that product. Which is great because when you want to buy one machine for post-processing, the goal is to minimize cost of labor and scale your laboratory with only 1 or 2 people, right? You don't want to have a field of workers in your post-processing lab. That's not only a field of labor, that's a field of potential insurance. It's a lot of cost that's coming into your product that other people aren't doing. So as well as when you're scaling, you really trust the guys in your laboratory. You don't want to just start bringing in people just to scale. So this machine allows you to do your purging as well as a number of post-processing stuff. When combined with a concentrate dispensing machine, Low Temp just released one that has an arm to pick up and fill and put back. You're cutting out a massive percentage of labor in the field. So that's infusion. Let me jump over to terpene homogenization. So in addition to infusion, we can homogenize, right? So a lot of our clients that have distillate will infuse their terpenes with their distillate with a very quick SOP. I believe it was something like 60 to 100 seconds or something like that. Can everyone see that? I'm making sure it's not glitching.
Looks good.
As well as terpene homogenization, something that we see quite a bit of is isolate purging. This machine can be matched up with those that are making isolate in line with their extraction. And we've all found out for the ones that have done it that isolate is also kind of a pain to purge if you're doing a second wash over it to clean it up. This came from a client in Arizona who's specifically only using it for isolate and HTE. And then using it to reformulate those products back together when necessary at certain ratios to create different products. Which again is now formulated by an SOP, formulated by ratios. Everything's down to the dot. Every time he fills a jar, he knows exactly what's inside of it. He can blind test on any product and find out, that's the consistency that they were aiming for. And again, I do set the expectation that purging HTE will take 2 spins likely. And I recommend putting it back in the oven and letting it cool down if it does warm up so that you can start that process over. Homogenization of powders. So this is an interesting video. We were invited on a golf course, and honestly, this is one of the bigger SOPs that a lot of the small guys not even aware of, not even doing. It's not a lot of the SOPs for what we're seeing, mixing powders with your extracts, done by big companies, big corporation MSOs, because a lot of their secret ingredients are powders, right? Whether it's a peptide or it's a if it's a tapioca powder, something like that. Um, and creating the ability to, nano-emulsify or whatever they're doing. And that's a very interesting, SOP. On this SOP, I'm going to restart it. We took granular cotton candy mix on the golf course with the machine and mixed it with extract, and we were able to homogenize that granular mixture so well that it worked perfect back in that cotton candy machine. So this is what it looks like. You can see a fat chunk of extract in there, going into the machine, coming out of the machine just as it was before it was even touched with extract. Pretty interesting. I got a video of Murphy here doing separation on the machine. So, as I said earlier, you can separate the gears, go from planetary functionality into straight functionality. So here's our separation cup. Final result. You see that we've grown those crystals a little bit larger than, say, trying to separate from a batter or a rosin. And before we got some HTE.
Going between these processing is super easy, right, Alex? It's just changing cups and changing SOP.
Yes, to separate the gear takes 10 minutes. It's right in that center shaft. And the first time you do it, we'll be on FaceTime with you doing it. So, our shop has workers that have built and taken down this machine so many times and have troubleshooted it, and they're super knowledgeable. So anytime that our clients have
Dinner's ready,
questions,
boys.
so I wanted to show you guys this video. You can control the consistency. If you want to come out with a sugar versus a batter, you can. You just slow it down quite a bit. So as you can see, you can get different consistencies by controlling the amount of agitation that you're having, right? If you slow it down just to really, really purging, and you're not hitting it with it as fast, you can kind of and grow that THCA out a little bit larger before putting it in the machine. You can get different consistencies.
All right, so the cycle is over here. Jeremiah's ready to pour out of the cups.
I was actually just about to show you some final product pictures, so this is right on cue.
So you guys can see it was a batter going in. This is the consistency. Sorry, we got not so great lighting in here. Nice and homogenized. And as this cools, it won't be as liquidy, obviously. The cup's not hot. It's warm, which is, great for pouring it out. Once it cools down in the Pyrex here, it will turn into a nice batter, nice creamy batter.
I saw a question come in regarding does it decarb the batter? We have not detected decarb occurring in this purge procedure. And following that, I saw a question about the temperature of this batter right now, and I was looking for the.
That's something I'm trying to get clients to test as well. I'm trying to get clients to see if we can decarboxylate it. Right now, we're not able to.
Right.
It would be sick if we could decarb THCA
And
in it,
the
but it's
temperature
not
on the
something
cup,
that we can do at the moment.
the temperature on the cups right now, it's like lukewarm water. They're not hot at all. Just barely warm.
And again, most of that run, the cup is cold. So if you stop it halfway through and pull it out, it'll be cold. And that's from the
Yeah,
butane evaporating.
yeah, you're getting evaporative cooling going on in there.
So compare that to like days in the oven underneath heat, right? And that's a much shorter time that your product's seeing heat. And right now we only have the extractors on here, but if we had your lead growers or your small batch growers that spent how many months finding the right genetics and then growing all those terpenes for you to throw in the oven, that's something that they don't love to see, and that's something that your product doesn't want in the end. So it's a not only, in my opinion, a higher quality product, but it's done much easier and much more consistent.
Right, and we just ran some fresh frozen, live resin a few weeks ago, and you obviously don't want to burn, any terps off of that. I'm the type of guy that likes flavor and THC in there, not just the THC. So I'm all about, preserving terps for sure. And this helps immensely with that versus, like you said, leaving it in an oven for days on end.
Especially HGE.
Yeah, especially HG.
So what's heating the vessel? Coley, I appreciate you asking since you came in late. It is just energy from the cup spinning. So how the unit works is the cup spins the opposite direction of the centrifuge. So there are two axes of rotation. And it looks like the earth spinning around the cup, which creates shear force, right? And that energy that's created warms up the cup. But the majority of the time, it's not warm. It's cold from evaporative cooling. Hope that catches you up. I can take this opportunity to answer some of Jeff's questions that he's got in here. Is there any plan for large units? So our biggest unit is, 3 liters. It does about
I'll
2
show
liters
show
every
some of that
20
live
minutes.
resin after this.
If you're going bigger than that, I may recommend multiples, or we
I'll
can
show some of
actually
that live
order
resin
a
after
very large unit. So, we've yet to reach a capacity that's too large, Jeff. So if you think this machine is not large enough, we can go bigger. What is the temperature of the concentrate? You went through that. What is the vacuum of the STM pull to? So I assume, I'm going to guess, that you're pulling down to 10 kPa, right? Our standard batter SOP goes into 10 kPa, which is about 1.45 psi.
Yeah, I go down to 10 for this SOP. So I'll just show you I don't know if you can see that, but there's the SOP right there for standard batter. That's what I have it at right now. I do go down on the final spin to 10 kPa, starting at 85, and it gradually on each spin step down a little bit, and by the end I'm down to 10 kPa for this batter SOP.
And for those wondering, 85 kPa is about 13 psi, 12 psi.
I can show you too. We do have some of that live resin over here we ran, just so you can get a idea. This stuff was way more terpy, so it's a little more loose, liquidy, whatever you want to call it, wet. Let me grab a tool here. This is from a farm I've been working with for about 7-8 years, but this is more of a sugary consistency here. Super terpy.
That's what we were saying, is that you can control the homogenization. So if you run it, at a shorter period of time, or I would say probably at a slower speed, right? If you ran it at, 12 to 1300 versus 2500, you can, and as well, control the THCA growth. So if you had a little bit larger of THCA growth before putting it in the machine, that helps as well.
That's about all I got over here. I'll just be getting the last little bits of batter out of these cups here.
Cool. Alex, as he does that, do you want to take a couple more minutes to look at any final products, images, or talk anything else about the machine? Also, Jeremiah, if you want to share any other experiences with the machine or anything that that you've noticed while using it, feel free to use this time to do it as well.
It saved a lot of time from my previous running back ovens all the time. Previous spot, we would let it batter or, sugar up for a couple days. And then we would vac it for, I think our minimum was 48 hours. Some we would let go longer, like 72 hours. And then if you didn't, kind of batter it up before that, most of the time at a previous spot, we would do all that and then have to chop all the THCA and HTE up in our Pyrex. We were just doing batter there too. And that just takes, you're a week in at that point. That's not counting, running the stuff. So this, you can, once you get your SOPs, throw it in there. I got this, I had it at 20 minutes before, it's down to 16 minutes now. Throw it in there, go do whatever else you need to do. If you want to, spin it longer, you want a different consistency, you can just hit start again. Or if you need to set up, other SOPs to do what you need to do, it's very, very handy.
Yeah,
And
you can pre-program 20 SOPs into the machine.
Yeah, and Alex, you were talking about infusing. Like we've done that a couple times here together, and that I was blown away when I saw how well just throwing a straight, few grams of oil straight, just like this oil right here, straight into flour, and it comes out looking just like flour. It's not wet, like you'd think. It infuses incredibly well. I was shocked when I saw that.
Yeah, and I mean, transparently, we were all shocked when we smoked it, right?
Yeah, and it smokes good. Yeah.
The way that it infuses so well affects the way that it burns, right? So your product on the shelf won't have oil drip down to one side, which is a big flaw in the market currently, which is why everyone's spending all this money on infusion machines. And it creates a consistent burn through the entire joint. As well, you can homogenize at a pretty thick consistency. You can homogenize a decent amount of the oil into the flour, which is great for those companies that are saving money on flour. But it also allows you to create a really high quality product.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the action of the planetary centrifuge really embeds the oil deeply and homogenously into the flour, correct?
Yeah, the shear force and the adaptation of that cup's moving those buds so far around. That's why we're able to take such a thick consistency like live resin and throw it in the cup and have it homogenized without, having to only throw in, HTE or something. All right. Does anyone have any more questions? Since I think we've gone through most of the functionality on the machine.
Yeah, and for those joining late, you're looking at a live production lab, Engineered Extracts outside of Portland, that uses this machine for a couple of its core processes. But there are also a lot of other processes that Alex went over earlier. And all these machines are well out in the field. People are really loving them and using them for all different kinds of their capabilities.
Feel free to reach out to our clients. SciPhy and I, SciPhy has Jeremiah. Jeremiah is a client of ours. They have a machine that's being used in full production. That's what his product looks like in a jar, right out of the machine, ready to go to testing. We also have clients posted in tags. All of our clients are stoked to be using this machine. So reach out to your friends or reach out to the extractors that you have and talk to them about how they're using this machine. And then also compare, all these different SOPs that we have, like infusion, different consistencies, separation, HTE solvent evaporation, homogenizing powders and oil, isolate purging, terp homogenization, infusion, and see how you can grow your lab without having to hire more people, because that's the future.
And this stuff isn't the greatest color. I just want to throw it in the jar to show,
Looks
Smells
delicious.
good. I mean, I'd smoke it. I believe this was a Obama. Nope, Gorilla Breath. My bad.
Evan, do you have any final thoughts for us?
So no, we can transition. If people have any more questions, and if more questions roll in, we'll answer them. We're going to do a quick talk from Steve at SciPhy to talk about how this machine might qualify for rebates, cashback rebates, and many PUDs, and just give a little bit more context.
Well, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on your time zone. Want to talk a little bit about some rebates that are available from SpinTech. Because there is a large energy savings that comes from doing solvent recovery with SpinTech, we're able to do a comparison between the energy used from a vac oven and the energy used from SpinTech. And I bring up an example here. And by the way, I will be able to email this to everybody at the end of this workshop. So what this sheet is showing is the difference in energy use between two 7.5 cubic foot across vacuum ovens, which is equivalent to what a 1500 SpinTech would replace. And I'll let your eyes take a look at this graph for a minute. This is showing the difference in kilowatts per hour saved. So you're using over 4 kilowatts per hour with the two ovens and less than 1 with the SpinTech. And so as you go down to the sheet here, the chart, the annual cost to run those vac ovens is about $5,000. That's just the energy at 15 cents per kilowatt hour. Whereas you're looking at about $250 for the SpinTech. That's a huge savings. You're talking about saving, almost $5,000 a year just in energy costs. And so as we go further down, to use an example of the Energy Trust of Oregon, they pay about 45 cents for every kilowatt saved in a 1-year period as a rebate. So in Oregon and in Washington State, you're talking about a rebate of almost $15,000. Now I see Jeff jumping up with a comment about BC Hydro. We have worked with these rebates now in Canada, the United States. I'm working on some in Europe right now. We've only had one region that gave us trouble, and that was BC Hydro, and they have since said they are now willing to work with cannabis entities. So if you need some help with this, I'll send this flyer to everybody. My email's on it. Just shoot me an email. I'll get you involved in the process. The other thing that's worthy of mention here briefly is in addition to the rebate, you're talking about saving about $5,000 a year in power costs. And then you're adding, the savings of 1 to 2 full-time batter whippers. You're talking about speeding up your process significantly. So the savings and the return on investment in this machine is measured in months. So I will email this to everybody. If you have any questions, just shoot me an email back. And that's all I have for you, Edwin.
Steve, you want to quickly talk about cart fillers, HMS, and just a little bit of the overall spectrum that they got over there at Engineered Extracts, and then any more final things before we're at time people want to get out there, and then we'll be done.
So we are getting ready, and I know there's actually a couple people on the call here today that are anxious to do a demonstration of our HMS, our hydrocarbon membrane system. And one thing to mention is that the hydrocarbon membrane will do one function that SpinTech does, which is that terpene separation. And what we tell folks is if you're running columns, say over 20 pounds per run, then the membrane may be better for pulling out your terps in terms of efficiency at that scale. Whereas if you're under 20 pounds per column per run, the SpinTech is a better value. And so we're going to be doing demos in January of the HMS, hydrocarbon membrane, the extractor, and of course SpinTech and some other equipment. So if you'd like to do that, again, I'll shoot everybody an email at the end of this event. Let me know, reply to that email if you're interested in setting up a demonstration, and we'll get you on the schedule.
Awesome. And then, I'll mention, this lab Engineered Extracts uses our extractor, the HH50, it uses the HMS, it uses the SpinTech, and it also uses a vape jet cart filler. SpinTech and vape jet are both, incredible products. You've seen a lot about SpinTech today. And and these are all the products that we support in our partner labs, and we're excited to talk to you guys about them. Does anybody have any further questions that they would like to get out there? Just before we have the technical people off. Any more questions? Cool.
Actually, Edgar, I'll just add one thing. VapeJet has just introduced a new filler that fills dabbable jars. And if you have an extractor like the HH50 that is running 50 to 75 pounds an hour, and you're pumping out 600-700 grams an hour, you might want to look into some automated filling options. And part of our demo will show you not just the vape cart fillers, but also this new dabbable jar filler.
Awesome. Alex, do you have any final words? I can switch it over to you for a second. This little send off.
Not at all. We love working with SciPhy. You know, you guys are great partners. If anyone has any questions, feel free to reach us out to us or to SciPhy directly. You know, we're happy to work with the team. So please let us know how we can help you. And if you have questions on, you know, how this machine's applicable to the lab, you know, please reach out to us and we can figure out a solution that works for you.
Awesome. And like I said, I will be sending out the recording of this video to everybody that came late so they can see the video that we shared on infusing. We talked about that a good bit, but isolate purging, mixing isolate HTE, homogenization, et cetera, because this machine certainly does a lot, too much for 1 hour. But thank you so much, everyone, for coming. We're SciPhy Systems and Purge Industries, C1D1 Labs, and Engineered Extracts, and we look forward to talking with you soon. All right, everyone, have a great day.
Thanks, guys.